just trying to make sense of it. I mean, it wasn't. Edinburgh became this kind of HIV/AIDS capital, kind of heroin capital of Europe, almost within a few years. But yet, you wouldn't know this was happening. It was almost like a conspiracy of silence. I mean, you could have some reports in newspapers, but basically it was still this kind of festival city and all this kind of stuff, you know. And so it was. It didn't. It was very, very kind of very strange that there was this conspiracy of silence, and I felt that it didn't really reflect what was going on in the city. So I wanted to sort of, I wanted to kind of write something that was more kind of real to me. It's a very difficult job to adapt something, to adapt a story or a novel or for screen, and I think you have to be conscious that you're working in a completely different medium, and you're telling a story in pictures, and you have to make very hard choices and respect that medium, but also you've got to kind of capture the spirit of the book. And I think that Trainspotting does that. The film does that. It's obviously from the book, but it kind of becomes something in its own right. It becomes something else, and I think it's a great achievement. Glues to me is like. It's just it's like this invisible adhesive that holds people together and communities together, and what I was wanting to look at is kind of what happened to the glue from the 80s onwards, you know, into the current kind of era of globalization, and so that was what I was trying to do, was to look at what this kind of glue was, what this adhesive was, and what happened to it, and what the consequences were for us of it vanishing or being weakened. I think it's kind of my muse. It's kind of the thing that, you know, the place that influences me most and kind of inspires me most. I mean, Edinburgh has always had this kind of duality side of it. I mean, it's no surprise. Like Robert Louis Stevenson's probably the greatest ever writer to come from Edinburgh, and he wrote Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde based on the case of Deacon Brodie, who was a guy who was one thing by day, a respectable citizen by day, and a kind of murderer and drunkard and all that by night. And Edinburgh has always been a bit like that. It's always had these two sides. It's also this very respectable side and very rough side. I mean, all cities have, but it's kind of it's mythologised, this side of itself, and it's quite interesting why these myths kind of come into being and how important they are to a place, to its identity. So that's always been something that I've wanted to look at in fiction. Yeah, I have. I mean, my last one I did, Crime, which is not translated into French yet, was set in Miami. So I mean, it kind of, and I think I will do more stuff. But even though it's set in Miami, it's still kind of influenced by where you come from and what you do and all that. I mean, it's like I think that the setting, the older I get, the physical setting isn't quite as important to me. I could write something anywhere really, but I would still be influenced by where I came from. I think it's just really getting the kind of voices in your head and getting the kind of getting a visual picture of them in your head. Once you kind of hear their voices and you visualise them strongly, and you kind of start to think about kind of how they behave and how they dress and what they, you know, start to come alive on the page. You know, it's kind of it takes a bit of time. You have to kind of you have to work on it, you know. I think that's like any writer will tell you that something doesn't just drop out your head and onto the page. You know, you need to kind of bang away and chip away at it until you get it right. So it's like any other characters, anybody else would write characters. Just you kind of you listen, you keep your kind of ears and eyes open, and you pick up things, and you know, hopefully you can translate it to the page. All over really. I mean, I kind of I've got, you know, I just work from a laptop or a hard copies, so I can sit in cafes and you know, sit in. When I'm in Dublin, I sit and sit. I've got a couple of local cafes that I go to and write in. I actually write a lot in the French Institute in Dublin because they've got a beautiful big kind of cafe, and it's quiet. They don't have any music there. Sometimes in the Botanical Gardens I'll write. I've got a big office at home in Dublin. When I'm in Miami, it's the same. I'll write in kind of coffee shops or one of the Art Deco boutique hotels, sitting with a cocktail, you know, and just sip my cocktail and start writing, or sit on the balcony in my apartment and start writing there. So And I mean, I'll probably write something in the hotel room tonight, you know, if I'm so inspired. So I kind of, it doesn't really matter where I do it. I mean, my place in Edinburgh, I write a lot there. Sometimes I'll just go there and sit there. I'll take all my notes there and just sit there and write and wait till I've got a draft. Yeah, so I mean, I'm not so much a creature of habit, you know. I can basically construct a different regime depending on how I feel and how the book is.